Welcome back to another video, folks. Back on Sling Mountain. Just come indoors from being outside in the garden. It's lovely out there today. Buzzards flying around, sheep bleating around the field and stuff. Really warm, which is probably why there's loads of wasps out today. I think they've woken up from their winter's sleep. Today, I want to look at sort of being efficient on a multi-pitch route. And really, that's probably going to be mostly about sort of the belay area, because that's where I think you can gain a lot of time with climbing. And that can be important sometimes. And I think it's worth saying at this point that we don't want to be rushing this stuff, whether this is in a work sense of you being a climbing instructor, or if it's just in a personal sense. And that's really what I'm focused on, just personal climbing here, out with a mate. We don't want to rush it, because that's when errors can happen, isn't it? And errors could be things like, just a tangle in the rope. Well, that's not the end of the world. Or it could be something more important. So I think just efficiency comes from practicing a lot and kind of getting to know your climbing partner, which is, you look back through history and, successful sort of alpine mountaineers and all those kind of people, they get to know their partner really well. We've obviously got to get on and complement each other and all that sort of thing, but also you just kind of know what's happening all the time. You start to minimize your climbing calls. You start to not need to tell each other or ask each other what to do. Just you know what to do, and you can concentrate on doing it well and having a nice time and everything. I mean, you might be thinking, does it really matter being efficient on the belay stance? Well, a lot of the time, no, it doesn't, does it? You could just be out to have a nice time. You've got all day to do one route or whatever it might be. And who cares about trying to be fast and all that kind of thing. That's great. I've had some brilliant days just having a laugh with a mate, and time is irrelevant, okay? But sometimes it does matter. Maybe it's as simple as you want to tick a few routes that day, okay? So by being efficient, you enable yourself to do that. It could be that you're somewhere like the Alps where you've got a longer route to do, and it might be you're getting the lift back down at the end of the day. And if you're not efficient, you might miss that lift down. Touch wood, I never have, but plenty of my friends have missed it, not through being inefficient, for all sorts of reasons, but and they tell me about having to sit in the toilets overnight, shivering away, pressing the button on the hand dryer repeatedly because it's that cold and they haven't got sleeping bags with them and that, or it's a long walk back down to Chamonix or wherever you might be. So I'm a big fan of not missing the last lift down. And imagine you're doing 10 pitches of climbing. I'm just saying a random number there because it's easy maths. If you could save 60 seconds per belay, 10 minutes straight away, and that genuinely is the difference, isn't it, between getting a lift or not getting a lift, potentially. So it's worth thinking about. And to be honest, I just find it satisfying as well to be nice and efficient and methodical. It's part of the enjoyment of climbing. I go climbing to go climbing, but I love all the geeky side of it as well. It doesn't even have to be as dramatic as missing the last lift. You might just want to get down to the chippy in Llanberis in time to get your fish and chips you've been looking forward to all day, and that may or may not happen. Or the bus down from the Llanberis pass at the youth hostel. Anything really. Enough waffle. Let's look at it. I've just tied into my rope and that. One way of being efficient is using a guide plate, right? And it's not the guide plate that's any quicker as such, it's what it allows you to do in a slightly easier way. So let's go with that first. So I can't put my guide plate in yet because I haven't set up a belay, have I? So what I need first is a sling, which happens to be dropped on the floor. That obviously wouldn't be efficient to be dropping your slings on that. You might guess this isn't the first take, which is why it's got a knot in it, it's down on the floor. Right, I've got to my belay. Got my bit of gear in, whether that's clipping a bolt, whether it's placing a nut, whatever, it just doesn't matter. My preferred method is normally to measure out there and put a little overhand in the sling. There's a sling belay video on our YouTube account, so check that out if you haven't. That's like I say, that's my preferred way. And then because it's an overhand, I can just roll it back or forwards a little bit to get it where I want it to be. Get myself a screw gate. This is all pretty simple stuff, isn't it? Not really gaining any time at the moment. And then what can I do with that? Well, I can clove-hitch into it. Probably watched one of 1,000 videos on the internet about how to do a one-handed clove-hitch. There we go, look, magic, I've done it. Great, so I'm tightened up on it, I'm where I want to be and everything. now I'm sitting back, I've realised it's not quite equalised as well as I want it. So I could roll this knot, it's not too difficult with this method. Or here's just a really quick way of taking in a bit of slack on one of them. It's going to undo that carabiner. It's going to put an extra wrap of sling around the carabiner. It doesn't have to be a fancy knot or anything, it's just an extra wrap around it. You can do as many as you want on it. There you go, that's got it to where I want it to be. Saved a couple of seconds there perhaps. Next up, right, well, I'm getting in guide mode, that's what I've been talking about, isn't it? So I get my guide plate out, which already has the other carabiner on it as well. That's good, because I'm trying to be efficient, aren't I? I can clip that in, and yeah, I've done a bit of metal on metal there. People get really excited about that as well, metal on metal. I mean, it's just not a big deal in most circumstances. There's a time and a place where we wouldn't clip carabiners to carabiners, but here, no twisting going on, works really well. For some reason I put that back on there, that's not so efficient. Why have I put it on there? Well, I just like the fact that it takes this belay plate away from my knot a little bit. I'm not worried about it rubbing in terms of damaging the rope, it just keeps it all a bit more clear and everything. So I like the idea of using a big HMS, a boa in this case. And that's actually kind of become my PowerPoint in this setup, so I really like that. What do I do next? So I shout down that I'm safe to my mate, don't I? Having double checked everything's done up and that. Take in the rope, yep, great, winning. Put them on belay, clip him in. We're good to go, aren't we? We bring them up. Jobs are good. Right, that's a really neat and quick way of doing these things. There's nothing rocket science there. You're probably doing that sort of thing already. We can, you can do it slowly, you can do it fast, but if you're sort of doing it at, efficiently, that's probably not going to gain you much time as long as you're not having to overthink it. It's just sort of happening, not on autopilot as such, but only because that phrase just sometimes makes me think, oh, we're going to miss stuff if we're just cruising along on autopilot. But it doesn't require much thought when you've practiced it a bit. This time though, I'm in the same, on the same climb, maybe on the next pitch. I want to use guide mode again because I like using guide mode. And there's 3 bits of gear, and my 120 sling just doesn't equalise because it's not big enough, right? So it's making funny angles and everything. I can't use it. So I always carry a 240 centimetre sling, this long one. Quite skinny, so it's not, well, I mean, it just isn't heavy and it's not very bulky or anything, so I like it. I clip them in. First thing I kind of tend to do with slings to be efficient, get that up there out of the way, that little join. If you don't put it there on purpose, you can guarantee it's going to get in the way. Clip the next 2. Not doing anything with them yet. If we're using 3 anchors, we're going to end up not with a V, but with a, what shape? A W shape, right? So next up is just a big knot to give me my PowerPoint, right? Just an overhand will do. If anything needs adjusting very slightly, I'll just give it a wrap, as I did before. Next up, get myself into there, can't I? Clip him in, do my magic one-handed clovitch again. Great, there we go. Right, well, what's next then? Okay, I shut down safe. I can then get my belay plate on, can't I? So before I went into there, perfectly good way of doing it, isn't it? That's what I just chatted about. Hey, here's another way. You can go into what's called the shelf. So that's like just above the PowerPoint knot that works well with this setup where you've done a big knot here. You go into each of those slings, right? So you've ended up, I kind of think of these as almost 3 separate sling loops here. So we've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3. We've gone through all of them. Do them up because I don't want to come back to it. Clip and flip, that just gets it gravity loaded and all that kind of stuff. Gate away from the rock, which is ace. Right, there we go. So at this point, I'm going to chuck them on belay. There we go. Same again, it's no different, is it? Do what you need to do, belay your mate up. Good. Again, the reason for going in up here just keeps it all a little bit separate so it's nice and neat and ordered and everything, okay? Good. Next method then. This time I've left my 240 centimetre sling on like a boulder or something that I've used as a runner, or maybe my mate's forgotten it when we've used it on the previous belay, so we've only got 1 between us or something. So let's just have a quick look at how we can do something with the anchors. I'll just keep it simple with 2 anchors to start with. So I'll just get this one out of the way. So I can't use a sling this time because I've run out. or the short one is not getting me a good enough angle for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter, does it? But we've decided to go with a rope. I still want to use guide mode, and you'll see, you know, why. I'll go rabbit on in a minute about why I like guide mode. Let's just get him squared away. Just a good habit as well. You know, I know where this lives on my harness, right around the back there, every single time, same place. Right, this time then, I'm going to do up to here. Let's just stick with the one-handed cloviches. There we go, great. If you've watched the previous belay video I've done, in reach anchors, we leave a bit of a loop there, don't we? A bit of slack there, and then do our other clove hitch like so. Get him in, do him up. And then we're all on that anchor. This one's not doing anything. So this is going to be another clove hitch, isn't it? And where's that going to go? It's going to go onto my harness. So I need my extra carabiner. And that's going to go onto a rope loop. If you've watched some of those escaping the system type videos, you'll see why that might be a good idea. And it's just more comfortable as well in regular belay. It makes no difference here really though. This little loop here, this might be useful for me. Let's tie an overhand in here. Okay, that is not a very neat overhand, so I'm going to do it again. That was not efficient of me though, isn't it? Because I've doubled the time by having to do it twice, so just good to get things really good first time. Is it safe before? Yeah, of course it is, but it's a video, isn't it? And you know what the internet's like. If I do a bad knot there, someone will chastise me for it. There we go, that's good. So I'm safe on two anchors, all equalised, independent. I've got a bit of an angle. Plus, I've got this little loop here, which that's also equalised, independent, and created a bit of an angle. What do you think I'm going to do with that? You can probably guess if you haven't done it before. Clip it, do it up and flip it. There we go. That is, get me a rope, a little belay spot, isn't it? I quite like that. Saved myself a sling if I haven't had one. It's nice and neat. This is separate to here, so it's all in space. We can see what's going on really well, can't we? I belay my mate up, jobs are good. And let's say my mate's going to lead through on the next pitch, because that's what we normally do as British type people, isn't it? We alternate the leads, okay? So what are they going to do when they get up here? Well, they're going to come on up and they want to clip to something, don't they? Right? Well, this has provided a nice place for them to clip to, hasn't it? So that's really good in that sense as well. So let's use my spare one there. Might even, if I'm feeling kind, put that there ready for them so that when they come up, they just get their little clove hitch, bang, we're in. Get themselves adjusted. They're safe. We can start to do other things. One thing I can do as the belayer, if they're going to lead on up, is sort this belay plate out, which involves swapping from guide mode into belaying the leader up. Well, it's all loaded up already, so we don't need to take it off belay or anything. We can just put it into our rope loop down here, get the orientation right, teeth down because my mate's going up above me, clip him in, get it in the wide end like that. Well, there we go, we're good to go, aren't we? So that's nice and efficient. I can get that back just to keep things clear and simple. That was one of my carabiners, so when my mate leaves, I'll have that back off them. I can just leave it dangling there for a minute. I'll sort it out as well. They've got their set, I've got my set. It's not to say obviously you can't share kit, but it's nice just to keep certain bits on your own harness. So that works really well, doesn't it? I like that. Let's just clear that up for a second. Get him all back to where we were. Okay, so I'm safe. That's got the belay on and everything. Let's just get my mate back on belay for a moment. There we go, we're in. I guess one of the things we can do now to save time is kind of multitasking, isn't it? So what have we got to do if I've led that pitch and they've led the other pitch? Oh, sorry, they're going to lead the next pitch. Well, we don't need to reflake the rope or anything because their end is already on top because they've just come up. If I was block leading, it'd be a bit different, but in this sense, yeah, just the rope is sorted already. So what we've got to do, well, we've got to swap gear, haven't we? So any gear that I've got, I can just be putting, let's say, onto a good part of the shelf there, clip it all onto there, and then they can sort it out. You can start to be a bit efficient there as well by, you know, maybe there's some nuts being used. So while I'm clipping that to there, my mate hands me the nuts that they've taken off and I'm clipping them onto the appropriate carabiner while they're racking and stuff. So you just start to multitask a little bit. While they're doing that, we've probably shared a rucksack if we're in the Alps, kind of thing, if at all possible. Taking a really light one so we can share it, which is ace. So I take the rucksack off them, because the second has the rucksack, I clip it up onto here somewhere. I have a drink, I read the guidebook while they're re-racking, I put a bit of sunscreen on, whatever it might be. But trying not to have just one person stood there doing nothing, because that's kind of wasted time, isn't it? So do your best to help each other out in that sense. This is just a neat way of doing it, so they can kind of take what they want when they want, rather than you giving them stuff in all random orders. You don't have to do this, it's just another nice, neat way of doing things. Again, whether you're in the Alps or in the Llanberis Pass or anywhere else, right? Because I've got a cam out at the moment, here's just a little trick for you when you place a cam, right? Bang, you put it in. Sometimes you'll extend the sling, because this is the extendable sling version. Great, pull it, clip it, done. Sometimes you want to extend it even more, so you're going to get a quick draw and put that on as well. So what I'll often do there is pull that, and I'm going to leave that carabiner there, and just imagine this gold carabiner is my quick draw. I put that into there, right? And then when my mate comes along and is re-racking it as they're taking it out, they can take the quick draw off, put that there. They can just pull that, and it's kind of ready to be racked. So that's just a neat way of doing things, really nice way. So we've just covered a few little things there, haven't we? Not loads, but just a few little bits that might speed you up a bit. All right, here I am next to Sling Mountain. I never really said why I like to use guide mode when I'm sort of multi-pitching and trying to be efficient. So I thought I'd just chuck this in to make sure that was in there as well. So the caveat being that whether you're belaying in guide mode or any other mode, you've always got to like pay full attention to belaying. It's super important, isn't it? And we can never let go of that breaking strand of rope, regardless of the belay method that you're using. But that said, when you're belaying in guide mode, it is a bit easier to sort of hold on one hand and multitask a little bit. So you're still concentrating, just to make that doubly clear, but it is easier to multitask. So if your mate, is getting a bit of gear out, or they're just on a ledge having a little breather, you can keep one hand on that braking side of the rope, and you can just multitask a bit by perhaps, we talked about racking gear onto the shelf. Perhaps you could be doing that whilst belaying safely. Perhaps you could be having a quick drink safely. Perhaps you could be reading the guidebook safely. Perhaps you could be putting that sunscreen on safely. You get the idea. You can just multitask a bit more, and maybe you've done a job or two that you would have done on the belay whilst they're climbing, so you saved yourself a minute or two. That's what the name of the game is, isn't it? But you've got to do it safely. Don't let go of that breaking strand of the rope. The saying goes, or the story goes, that guide plates were invented for French guides to roll a cigarette whilst they were belaying. I don't smoke, and I don't recommend you do that, but it gives you the flavour of why we might like a guide plate when we're trying to be efficient on multi-pitch stuff. All right, back to the action. Let's imagine though, we haven't belayed in guide mode, we've just belayed in kind of the normal setup, if you like, for want of a better phrase. Just going to take that off there, and we'll just get this little secondary power point out of the system and just let that dangle there. So that's what it would normally be like. Got my mate coming up just in a normal fashion. When they get up to me, if I'm like on a good ledge, that they're not really going to fall off. They might still fall off it, mightn't they? But if I'm not really expecting it, if they're leading through the next pitch, rather than get them to get safe on this slot, we can just tie a knot in it, can't we? We don't need to be doing fancy tying the plate off, like, in a rescue type sense, because we're on that big ledge. So just tie that, and that enables you to go hands-free. Worst case now, if they jump off for some silly reason, just knocks into there. It's not releasable under load. So I'm not going to do this on where I think it's actually likely to happen, all right? I'm doing this on that nice big ledge. What I'd rather do, if we're on like a hanging belay, is I don't want them hanging on me like this, because that just wouldn't be nice, even if we're not going to have to release it, because they just climb back on up when they're ready to go, but that's really pulling on me. So they're going to build their own little belay using the same bits of gear, fresh carabiners. That's why it's nice, if you can, to use a sling setup, isn't it? So they can just clip into it, boom, done. There's no faffing required. So there's a few little bits there as well, isn't there? I think that's all I want to say, to be honest, on this one. Little bits and pieces, like always racking the same, that's efficient, isn't it? Just by going climbing with your mate a lot and thinking through these kind of steps, you might be watching this and thinking, well, that's just completely what I normally do. Mega, that's really good, isn't it? You're being nice and efficient. What could be worth doing when we're allowed back outside, when you're climbing with a mate, not to rush it, I keep saying that, not to rush it. Why don't you time yourself when you get to a belay? Just literally, you get to the belay before you've even started building the kit into the rock. Take a look and go, right, start that imaginary stopwatch now, see it going, and then see how long it takes. You'd probably be surprised as to how long that bit takes compared to the climbing. See it and try it, and yeah, that'll give you a good idea to work from. It could be that actually you're a bit slow at placing gear. How do you get quicker at placing gear? Do it more. As with all these things, just doing it more, isn't it? When you're a novice trad climber, it takes a lot of time to find the gear. The more you do, the more you just look at the rock and go, right, number 6 nut, push in, great, number 8 nut, wash in, and all that. But when you get to the belay, just take that second. This is efficient, right? Although you're not doing anything for just a moment, it's still efficient, I think, and go, right, where do I want this belay to be? Because you could go, oh, number 6 nut, get that in, but actually the other stuff's over here, so you end up going back to that and taking it out because it's in the wrong place. So get to your belay, come up with a little bit of a plan, and then go forwards and do all of this. Where's the route going afterwards? Going off to the left? Okay, well, in which case, if my mate's leading through, why don't I put myself on this side of the ledge, they have that side, and then they're ready to go off there rather than crossing over and stuff. I haven't really done much in these series of videos about half ropes. I'm still thinking about how I can sort of show useful half rope stuff on Sling Mountain or outside. It's easier to do on the crag, but it's still ticking away up there. If you've got half ropes, it's more likely to get twists and tangles in, isn't it? So when you get up to the belay, think about just facing straight on and not spinning round. Every time you spin round, you're introducing a twist on you. Is a twist the end of the world? No, it just really isn't. People get really excited about twists. We don't want them because it slows you down, it's messy. And if you're working, it's very confusing to beginners to see a picture of twisted ropes and stuff. But if you just think about it going on, right, I'm going to keep this orientation now, no spinning for me on ledges, and then I won't have to spin back the other way to work it out when I have got twists. So just think ahead. I think that's the general plan, thinking a couple of steps ahead, coming up with the plan, and then doing it, really. So nothing too dramatic on that video, just a few little bits and pieces. Hopefully it's just getting you thinking about what you do and maybe where you can save a bit of time personally. I'm sure other people have got loads of other top tips for setting up smooth, efficient belays and saving time on multi-pitch routes. Fire away in the comments, put them in there. I'd love to hear them. I'm sure there's some other bits I do that I couldn't really quite think of when I was, as you know, sort of winging it through my little online lesson as we're doing here. If you've liked the video though, you know the score. There'll be more coming. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button so you get a little notification. I think you can turn them off if you don't want to have them, but yeah, subscribing is good for me. It makes my YouTube channel stand out a bit, and I'm more likely to get on that kind of here's what you watch next kind of thing, which gives me more coverage. So it's much appreciated every time you do that, as it is when you go and find us on Facebook and Insta and everything as well. If you've got any questions on it, you know the score for that as well. Fire away, and any requests and stuff. Some of the things get requested a lot. They are on a list. I literally have a list written down. Some of it, like I say, just requires a bit more thought. So if you haven't had your request dealt with, you might well do at some point. So thanks again for watching. More videos coming up very soon.